Welcome to the video for day 3. Today we're going to talk about graphing linear functions. What is the equation of a line? And this should be a review, but that is y equals mx plus b. The m is the slope and the b is the y-intercept. So when we're asked to find the slope and y-intercept of a graph, the first thing we need to do is get it into y equals form. So in this first one, I would need to subtract the 5x to the other side, so the y is by itself. Once I do that, it is in that y equals mx plus b form. So when I'm asked to find the slope and the y-intercept, I can get them from the equation. So the slope would be -5 and the y-intercept would be 2. I'll do one more. What are the slope and y-intercept of the graph y equals -4x? So this one is already in y equals mx plus b form, so I can just take the slope, which is the number with the x, so that would be -4, and then the y-intercept, since there isn't a b value, that means the y-intercept would be 0. Okay, and then we'll leave 3 and 4 to do in class. We're going to talk about graphing linear functions. So there are these types of lines and key features that we need to keep in mind when we look at the different types of lines here. The first one is horizontal, and we've already talked about horizontal and the word hoy. So just as a reminder, hoy stands for a horizontal line with a 0 slope in the form of y equals. So that equation, for example, would be y equals -2. So this is just one example, and there's a lot of different ones we could draw on here, just any horizontal line. The next one is vertical line, and we should always think of the word vux, standing for a vertical line with an undefined slope, always written as x equals. An example would be x equals -2. And again, any vertical line would work for this one. The next one is a diagonal or a slanted line, and this is where you come up with the y equals mx plus b. And this shows that the m is the slope and the b is your y-intercept. So when we write these equations, we're looking for what is the slope, where does it cross the y-axis, and then those help us write the equation in y equals mx plus b form. And an example is y equals x, which just shows that the slope is 1 and the y-intercept is 0. So those are the 3 things that you're going to have to know. The hoy stands for horizontal line, and then vux for vertical line, and y equals mx plus b is for a diagonal or slanted line. So how do we graph these? How to graph the linear functions? There's 2 options here. The first one is to have no graphing calculator, and then you would just need to identify the type of line to be graphed, so looking for either horizontal, vertical, or diagonal. And then make sure all the equations are in y equals mx plus b form before you start completing the following steps. First, you would plot your y-intercept, or the b number, on the graph for a starting point. Then you create multiple points in both directions using your slope, the m number, by doing rise over run. And then you'll connect all of the points and put arrows on the end. Option 2 is to just use your graphing calculator by putting the equation into your graphing calculator, writing down a table of values from your calculator, and then plotting the points and connecting with a line that ends with arrows. That shows that it goes on forever. The calculator steps are to press y equals, to input the equation. The equation, again, must be in y equals. Input the equation into y1, press second graph to get a table of values, and notice that vertical lines cannot be graphed in the calculator because we don't have an x equals button, we only have the y equals. So I'll do an example with both. So my first one here, I'm looking for, is it in y equals? And it is f of x, which is just a fancy way of saying y equals. And then we have the -2x plus 5. So I'm going to start with my y-intercept, or b number, and I'm going to highlight that one color. And my work is to say that the b number is 5. Go ahead and plot that b number, and writing b equals 5 is the work for this. Then I'm going to identify the slope is -2 over 1. So then I'll go down to right 1 to plot other points on the graph. I can't go up to left 1 just because I am at the top of the graph here. So now I just plotted down to right 1 and then down to right 1 until I ran off the bottom of my graph. Now I have enough points, I can go ahead and connect them with my ruler. And then I just put the arrows on both sides and label my graph. Now let's look at the next one. Y equals x minus 3. We just press the y equals button in our calculator and we input x minus 3. Then once I've done that, I can hit second graph to get the table of values and write down that table as my work off to the side of the graph.
So now I just write down X, Y as a table, and then I picked 5 points. 5 points is enough to then say that you have enough points to connect. You can put more if you would like. I started at -2, -5 because that's the one that I can plot on my graph. That's the lowest point I can start with. And then I can go -1 to -4 and then so on till I have enough points to connect. And once I've plotted all my points, again, connect with a ruler, arrows on the end because there's no restrictions on the domain, and then we can just throw a label on there. It's a good idea to always get in the habit of labeling because when we label more than one line on a graph, we have to have both labeled. And now I labeled and I am all set. So those are your two options. Either you can use the slope y-intercept form and just start with the y-intercept and use the slope to plot additional points, or just put it right into y equals in your calculator and get the table of values. But you should have either the work as the table or the slope and y-intercept labeled off to the side. Okay, we'll do more practice in class tomorrow. Have a good night.